Wow. Let's just go with this. Okay, good afternoon, everybody. Uh, the meeting today is looking at a number of aspects of major project. So the primary goal, obviously, in the big picture is improve the quality of major project, PRJ 4020. So my agenda today is an introduction to look at the groups, to look at the assessment criteria for PRJ 4020, to talk about mini Viva preparation, ethics application, data certificates, and student contest and prizes, all briefly. So, okay, so as you all know already, PRJ 4020 is required for 3 degree programs at UTech, BSc Computing, BSc Networking and Security, BSc Computer Information Systems. If you're from animation or some other program, this particular presentation and meeting is not relevant to you. I found this quote today. It is so necessary to get the basic skills because by the time you graduate, undergraduate or graduate, that field would have totally changed from your first day of school. I think perhaps that may not be true of some static programs like accounts, but I want to contend today that research methods is one of the basic skills that if you learn, you can continue to use those skills when you leave school. It's not whether or not you become an academic researcher. Research and learning is the kind of thing that you need in life, my opinion. So this is not a course. It's a course that you can use going forward. Okay, so why major project in particular? So that course is PRJ 4020. It's a course-based undergraduate research. There's a term in academia called course-based undergraduate research experiences, which is PRJ 420 is an example, and it builds on a prerequisite RES 3024 computing research methods. In general, based on the scientific literature, cures have 2 distinct but complementary set of goals, both scientific discovery milestones as well as student learning. And the idea is that we want both to happen. So I want to spend some time on making sure that I know who's a supervisor for each working group, identify a possible topic for each group that doesn't have a supervisor, preferably this week, if not today, by Thursday. And I'm proposing to have sessions with the students who don't have a supervisor until they get one in January, because I'm seeing this as an urgent issue. But they're based on the emails I read, there are students who they registered last semester. So based on that, if they can't drop a course after the fact, you can still drop a course this semester, or you cannot register. You know, the add drop period obviously has not ended as yet. So trying to figure out how to sort that out. So my proposal is starting this Thursday, going to have a meeting at 4 with students who are in that predicament until we find them the way forward. Because nobody has classes between 3 to 5 on a normal basis. All right. I want to go to the groups, but I think I was going to go through my presentation and go back to this number 2. So as you may know already, PRJ 4020 has 4 assessments: proposal 5%, continuous assessment 15%, final Viva 30%, final project documentation 50%. And I want to talk a little bit about each. Let me just talk a little bit about each of them right now. So the proposal is what you submit to your supervisor in the first week or 2, which is typically what you would have learned in research methods as chapter 1. So it would have a background, a problem statement, research questions, purpose, significance, and depending on what your supervisor wants, it may have a short method that's not required necessarily. That's 5% of your grade. We would expect that typically to be updated in the future. Then there's a grade for continuous assessment, which is really about your individual contribution. Starting this year, I'm not going to submit the documentation right now today. All students are going to require to submit an assessment of all students, including themselves, in the major project, both on the Moodle platform, Moodle platform, on an online platform, as well as their supervisor, so that we have on track what is the self-assessment and the peer assessment of each student. The final Viva, there are two Vivas. Viva is basically a presentation. The mini Vivas you know already will be in February. The first one is February 2nd. It's a Thursday, 3 to 5. And the final Viva will be after exams in May. And if anybody fails, there'll be a second final Viva at a date to be announced in the summer. That is worth 30%. You have to pass the final Viva in order to pass major project. So if your group fails final Viva, we typically give a chance to do the final Viva again without penalty. And typically, if it is that it's too early for questions already, Mr. Nelson. Give me a second. If it is that your final Viva, really, we're giving a lot of chance, because you know that typically if you do another class, if you're doing intro to programming, if you fail a test or you fail the kind of exam, you pay to do the whole course again. So we're being very kind to you to give you a chance to do the final Viva again without paying UTech. And I find students to be the fact that we have all this allowance, and then there's so much, I don't know, there's a lot of fuss both among students and staff about the whole thing. I think all things considered, we're quite kind. And then the fourth component is the final project documentation. And that is 5 chapters. Chapter 1, introduction. Chapter 2, literature review. Chapter 3, methods and procedures. Chapter 4, analysis and findings. Chapter 5, conclusions and recommendations. And it would also have appendices, which would include things like your ethics application, all of your instruments. Instruments include, if you have a survey, remember, a survey is not required, it depends on your project. It could include interviews if that's part of your project. It includes whatever the experiment is, if there's an experiment that needs to be discussed. All of those are part of your documentation. It would include the reference list as part of the appendix. It would include reference with the first thing. It would include the ethics certificate granted by the FENC, well, not really the FENC, the UTech Ethics Committee. All of those things are part of the appendix. At the beginning of the documentation, obviously there's a cover page and appendix or executive summary. I'm trying to remember which one we use right now. All of that is part of the final project documentation. So just as an overall thing right now, the proposal, the continuous assessment, and the final project documentation is graded by your supervisor, and the final Viva is graded by a panel that typically is 3 to 5 persons. The mini Viva is in February and the final Viva is in May. The documentation for details on this will be shared with you before January ends, all going well. But certainly the documentation for the mini Viva, in fact, I'll do it today, will be shared with you today. Yes. Now, somebody had a question. Go ahead with the question. Somebody had their hand up for a question? Or you can type in the question in the chat. Okay, in the chat I see, oh, a long discussion. Let's see. I had one with a supervisor. Okay, but that question from Mr. Brown is not about this. So we're coming to groups and people with problems. That was topic 2. That question that you have about your particular issue is not about assessments. Anybody has a question about assessments? We're all good so far about the assessments. I want to spend some time today looking quickly at the assessments if we have time, but this entire meeting is no more than 2 hours. We started late, or when I really started, I started the presentation. Is the mini Viva online? Where, Miss Mears? I don't know where to answer that. What do you mean, the rubric you mean? I'm not sure what you mean by that question. I don't know where it is. Because I was a major project coordinator last semester, I don't know what do you mean by the presentation? Oh, you mean how
Actually,
is it going to be done? Oh, is that what you mean? How is it going to be done? Okay, so yes, this year at the moment, the mini Viva will be done online. We just had a long discussion yesterday in our staff meeting as to how the final Viva will be done. So I won't make any comment about how the final Viva will be done, but the mini Viva will be done online, on Zoom. And the thing is, really, you're all required to show yourself on video. We had a long discussion about that, but that's the thing, because really these things really are exams. And I don't understand, is a continuous ongoing problem. And it seems to me, I think, I don't want to be here talking about the final view at this point, but it seems to me that people who can't find a way to go online, we might need to come to UTech in person, because if people have internet access issues where they are, they can come to UTech. There's not currently an epidemic of COVID in Jamaica, and I don't know of any other epidemic at this time that would prevent you from coming. So I think most likely we might have different options, but I want to focus on other things at this time. But yes, the mini Viva will be online via Zoom, and there'll be a Zoom link. And we'll create different breakout rooms, and that's how that will work. All right, so that's that. No more questions about assessment as yet. All right, get into, why is this not allowing me to go to the next screen? Oh, seems to have, there you go. All right. So mini Viva preparation. So all groups need to review the rubric. There's a rubric, because obviously it will guide you as to what's important. So there's a number of criteria. Remember, there are 3 different types of major projects in case you don't know. So one of them is there is research only, research and mini development, which is the most common. And there's research and major development. That's actually the least common. So there are 3 rubrics depending on the type of major project you're doing. It's already on YouTube right now. So it's streaming on YouTube right now at the moment, public. So I'm currently under my name. Just trying to figure out what I'm going to do. But anyway, let's leave it alone. Let me just continue what so it's on YouTube right now. That's why it says live. It's live on YouTube. So you can review the rubric. You can prepare the slideshow and documentation. Obviously, that's in advance of the mini Viva itself. You're required to have the documentation, which you'll email to the panelists. That's what I put as the last point. You need to practice. You practice by yourselves as a group, and you also practice from your supervisor. In a best case scenario, you would email your slideshow to the supervisor before you practice the supervisor, and then you'll practice the supervisor and other people. That's best case scenario. I'm actually finding it quite distressing to find out that many groups last year did not show their supervisor their slideshow or practice with them. I even had a group, I had 2 groups, and one of my groups literally never showed me their slideshow. They did send me their documentation a couple of days before, which had so many flaws. And I had a co-supervisor, and that was my better group, that I was so distressed. Guys, what is the point of having a supervisor if you don't utilize the skills of the supervisor? So you need to get feedback from your supervisor. I know there's at least one group that's having supervisor issues. Maybe I can stop and probably what I should have done was just shared with Mr. Witter, who currently, maybe we need a second person, but Mr. Witter at the moment is the is a student rep for major project. Maybe we could get a second one just in case if for some reason he has a problem. I will email him and he can distribute to the class through WhatsApp or any other method, because I don't have the email for everybody who is in major project. So back to this, we need to consider all of this. And most of this is obvious. So there'll be a panel and you will email your panelists in advance to the mini Viva. Typically, it's preferred that to be at least 48 hours in advance of the mini Viva itself. So the panelists, if they want to do, can look at the documentation. Notice not all will, but the point is if they want to, they should be able to. Right. Okay. Why is this? Okay. Sorry, this computer giving me a little bit of a problem. All right, so ethics application. So there is a recording of the training that happened last year. I think it might have been either November or December. I was there. I don't remember exactly when it happened. So you can watch that if you weren't there. And you all must submit the ethics application. Usually you have dates, and I didn't give any specific dates on I have dates of significance later in this presentation. The most important thing is to get it done as soon as possible. So you watch the recording if you need to, you fill out the form and you send it to your supervisor where you get feedback. The signature of the supervisor and the one or more students are both required. You submit it via the ethics website. Common errors is students submit the application form, but forget to submit the instruments. Instruments, remember, include whatever it is that you say you're using to collect data. So if you're doing, if you're using a survey, if you're using an interview, if you have some particular experimental approach that needs description beyond what's in the application itself, all that needs to be, if you have like advertisements that you're using, all of that would be attached to the form. So you have the application. In addition to that, if human beings are participants, you would also have what is called the letter of participants and informed consent. So letting you know, if it's being done online, typically you would put those two together. So the letter to participants, like for example, let's say an online survey, it's like it would be this research project. The purpose of the project is to do X, Y, and Z. Sorry, obviously it's not X, Y, and Z, the actual thing project is about. So it's a description of the project, the list of the participants. And then right after that, there'll be a place that they would check to say, yes, I agree. So the letter of consent, instead of signing it in person, you would have a checkbox where they say, yes, I agree, based on, you understand, guys? I hope. But both of those must be part of the ethics application, because all applications that involve human beings should have that as part of the application. If you're going to collect data at an organization, you must have the letter to the organization. So if you're going to, for example, do a random sampling at UTech, you're going to need to ask the registrar at UTech for a random list of students, for example, or staff or whatever. And so there would need to be a letter, typically it's going to be signed by your supervisor, not by you, but that the letter would need to be composed as well. So all the letters, all of those stuff that's part of the project would all be part of the ethics application. So you submit all of them one time. If you don't submit them, they'll send back and say, but you have this missing, you have that missing. What is the point of getting your ethics application denied just because you forget something that you already have, or that is easy to have? Then you have to wait another month, because typically it's once a month are these meetings. Just make sure you have everything for the application. That makes sense, I hope. So you don't collect data until you get approval, and you add when you finish, you add your certificate to the appendix of the final documentation. Let me look at the chat. Okay. All right, nothing about that. Any questions about ethics application? I guess the question I would have right away if I was listening, I'd be like, so where's the recording and where's the website? Good question. I think I will try to make sure I send all that to Mr. Whitaker. Mr. Whitter, sorry, who is our rep.
I believe Miss Whitaker already sent us the link for the website. Not sure about the training though.
Oh, I know the training was sent to staff the other day, but I didn't get a chance to go through all of that before this meeting. Got prepared took a little while. I was just trying to think through what we needed to go through today. But all of those can be sent to you as needed. So you have the website, so you're not sure you have the training. I know the last training was sent out to staff, so I can look at it. It's in my inbox. So I have a research lab, and so do other people. So, for example, Mr. White has a research lab on Fridays at 4 p.m. every which is what's it called? Intelligence Systems Research Lab that he meets. I have a research lab that we meet as staff members from Thursday, 1 o'clock. Well, I plan to have some meetings with students. So if anybody's interested, it's a project that's looking at educational, what's it really looking at? It's looking at it's trying to assess if higher education is worth it, essentially. That's what the project is about. And it's going to be looking at 4 different stakeholders: the students, academic staff, employees, and employers of university students and graduates, and looking at their assessment of higher education. And I mean, if anybody have an interest, you can either send me an email, send me a text, I know if you're interested. So in case you have any interest, because basically all research helps you to do research better. So if you have interest, you're welcome to come. I'm going to have a meeting with major project students as needed. Typically, I'm going to go with Thursday 4 to 5. So for this Thursday, which is in 2 days, groups without supervisors, groups with burning problems, or without topics. And on January 26th, the week before the mini Viva, with all students to kind of, just to clarify any issues that people have. The mini Viva will be February 2nd. If all the groups cannot fit in that time, it might flow over into February 9th. The ethics application is really as soon as possible. So we usually, in the future, maybe by January 26th, I'm going to have a dates with the hard dates. But guys, the hard dates is neither here nor there, because basically you want to get going. So if you look at this as a general sort of thing, in semester 1, you should have finished your proposal and chapters 1 to 3. The mini Viva is February 2nd, where you're going to practice with the supervisor and present to a panel. The ethics application is due soon, towards the end of chapter 2. I mean, there can be precise dates, but this precise dates is not the key, is that you're making progress. So a lot of students, by the way, underestimate how long it takes to collect data and underestimate how much work is required for chapter 4. It's more than just put together some simple graphs. It requires analysis. So whether it is quantitative only or multiple methods, meaning both qualitative and quantitative, or maybe one in every 50 might be qualitative only. It requires careful, detailed analysis, which takes a lot of time, and it cannot be done well in a week or 2. All right? Chapter 5 will come easily if you've done chapter 4 well. That's the conclusion and recommendations for the project. And then in the summer, you will do the final Viva. Typically, we are about a week or 2 after final exams. That date is to be determined. Again, you should practice with your supervisor. The supervisor should see your presentation before you present to the panel. And we require that you submit your final document, chapters 1 to 5, plus all the penalties I mentioned earlier, 1 week after the final Viva, and then your supervisor grades it based on the criteria I mentioned before. There are 4 assessments. Just a reminder, I forgot to put it on the screen. Everybody is required to do RES 3024 as in competing research methods, before you do major project. So if you have not done it in semester 1 or before that and passed it, you need to drop major project. Doing it this semester is not allowed. I don't remember whether or not at some point in so the application of how we have the software at UTech is not always correct. So if it is that you are registered in breach of the rules, that's a problem. So you need to, if you have not passed RES 24, kindly drop major project. Please and thanks. All right. And the other thing to remind you, that's why we should have put this on the screen. So I'm about to put it on the screen for next meeting that we'll meet on the Thursday before the mini Viva. Similarly, if you have not added major project either in semester 1 or 2, because at the moment we allow both times of registration, you're not going to register in the summer for this academic year. So if you're not able to register and pay the ECF, whatever that stands for, that's the right term, right, guys? I think it is. I think it's what it is. The commitment fee or whatever it's called. And you're able to work out some payment plan that is sufficient so that at the end of the semester, UTech considers you registered. Do not come in the summer or next academic year or 3 years from now to say you did major project and now pay, please put in the grade. Do not do that. That is not allowed. Don't even think about it. Just drop the course from right now or find a way to go to the bank and borrow the money. And by the way, this is not strange. I went to universities abroad. I went to the University of Jamaica. All the other ones I went to, those weren't even options. So when I see youth experience thinking that they can do that, it just baffles me. Because every place I went, you actually have to pay everything up front. Meaning if you have to, you get a scholarship or you get a loan or whatever. But and when I went to UA and did a master's, I went on their payment plan. I know exactly when this day you have to pay this you have to pay that, you have to pay that. And you either pay or you find a way to borrow money. But this thing where students just think that you can just pay when they feel like and then they have a right. I personally find it strange, but that's just me. And then the last thing I want to talk about quickly is the student contest and prizes. I don't have the details today to give you the exact monetary prizes, but we'll be having 2 competitions in the summer for best paper and best prototype. So that will be a short paper, certainly less than 10 pages, summarizing your major project for real money. I think last year we had money for first and second prize and for best prototype. So if you're doing a research on mini development or research on major development, you can apply for that and the rules will be broadcast in the future and the money and all of that. And that's the overview. Is there any question about my overview? So as far as I see in the chat, the things I see I've not addressed is people who have some burning issue that is individual to themselves. And somebody put the YouTube link in the chat. And there's some concerns about how do you get linked to the resources, but we'll sort that all out. And I'm going to communicate that through the rep. If there's anybody else who want to be a secondary rep, I don't need more than 3 years maximum. You can put your, you could indicate such now. If there's anybody else who wants to be a second rep, I don't know. No, I don't see anybody. Let's see in the chat, what's in the chat right now. Will the student loan bureau be affected? Well, Mr. Green, when it comes to matters that are really registrar matters, I can't answer you with a certainty. So if I'm just going to answer logically, not with confidence. So if logically, student bureau actually transferred the fees to UTech so that you actually became registered, then it seems to me, because you actually applied on time, meaning you applied the student loan at the time they said, but they actually transferred the funds late to UTech. And if UTech actually accepted it, I don't know any of that, then it seems to me that it will be a trend. So if that has happened in the past, then that's likely to happen again in the future. I don't know the details. I would say it's your responsibility as an adult to try to find out how that works for certain. So I don't know the operations of that. I do know that I've heard that from time to time, Student Loan Bureau has been late in transferring funds to UTech. I have heard that. So what you're saying doesn't surprise me, but a whole year late, that does sound. Was this a semester late or a whole year? I'm sorry, that's rhetorical. So please follow up on that for yourself, either with the registrar or the program director. I don't know. So I'm not trying to be difficult. I don't know. But it seems to me if you've done everything on time, you should not be penalized. All right. So no questions about my presentation. So either it was clear or there's nothing burning. So the thing now, guys, I could, let's see, we have 73 people here. I could start with the groups, or I could wait till the end. But what I definitely want is I want to make sure there's a spreadsheet. And when I look at the spreadsheet, I don't see who's the supervisor for each group. And I actually definitely need to know that for sure. So I am, okay, people are, well, it depends on many things. It depends on when this meeting ends. And I'm making myself available to major project students for this week. So I don't know why people are not sending me emails. So I think I responded to every email apart from there was a very generic email that said that here we are, we don't have a topic or a supervisor. Can we do this? And that was such a open-ended question. Let me say a version of what I said at the last meeting. So guys, not to waste the time of other students, there seems to be at least 3 groups that at this time that don't have a supervisor or a topic, at least 3, based on the email sent to me. And I would say it is possible. Seems unlikely you're going to get an A though, unlikely. And that would be, here are all the variables. Depends on the type of topic that you end up doing. It depends on your supervisor, depends on your level of seriousness in approaching the project. It depends on your aptitude. It depends on if things happen that you don't expect. So there's so many things. I can't say for sure how well you're going to do, but certainly if you're not very serious, it's not going to go well. So I can't say that definitively, but the unfortunate thing is there are some groups that they've registered from last semester and they have not yet gotten a topic. So I'm trying to sort that out. That's my plan. That's what I'm saying. I'm having a meeting on Thursday. And maybe depending on how today goes, maybe I could take a break and then meet with people, but I can't do everything all at once. So right. So my plan right now is to look at groups. What I've done the overview. Where's this thing? All right. It's to look at groups, to look at the Viva assessment, to look at a past slideshow if we have time. In fact, I'm thinking, do we actually have time for that right now? I'm not sure if we do. Thinking, because I'm thinking there's so many things to be doing right now. And I wanted to show you an ethics application, although we could probably postpone that. Yes, so I've basically gone through it. So let's ask the class, or not the class, the session of 74 people. Do you guys, what do you prefer to do first? Basically, my thing is we can talk about the groups. We can talk about, well, I already talked about the assessments. I don't, basically I can send the Viva assessment. We can look at that. We can look at Viva preparation, but we can also do that next meeting, and ethics application. Any preference? Let's see. Ethics application. Okay. Nobody else has a preference? Viva. Mr. Barrett?
Yes, miss. I will currently on the road, so I've been chipping in and chipping out too. So I wanted to know where would I be able to find the recording so I can rewatch all of this.
Mr. Barrett, you're taking up the meeting with a question. That's not a question. It's being recorded, sir. All I want to know what is the best thing to do right now. So we see that based on people, it's divided between ethics and Viva. Every meeting that I lead that is a lecture, I record without exception. Every single one since COVID. Since COVID, before COVID, I actually had students like recording me. I'm like, you haven't even asked me permission. I guess nothing like life has changed, so just recording everything. Yes. Right. Okay, so we have, let me see. Seems to me a little bit more people on Viva than on ethics. But I need to do groups today too. So let me go to, let's try to do all of them. I'm going to stop share for a second and look for, okay, let me look for this. Okay, what I'm looking for. Who stopped the recording? Or is that, oh, you mean, Mr. Whittle, you said to stop it? I guess you could stop it while I'm finding this. Or it's maybe my
That
co-host.
wasn't me.
No, miss, it was me. I thought it was pausing the recording on my computer. My
Oh,
apologies.
you can pause it if you want. I'm not really stopping. I'm just realizing like that big noise. I was like, wow. What am I looking for? I'm looking for, I guess I should have found it beforehand. It's on Friday. Can't be that late. Okay. Oh, maybe it's inbox. Okay, let's look this way. Because it's on Friday. Can't be that far. It's not yesterday, it's Friday. I'm finding one thing that I want, but the other thing is two things I want right now. Maybe this is it. Yes. Okay, here. Download this. All right. Okay, that's this. All right, so I can now share this. Where is this document? Where is Zoom? Zoom is right here. Zoom. Wait, am I not still here? Admit. I'm seeing a Zoom thing, but I don't see where. Why is this thing telling me to sign in? Let's go back to this document. Here we go. Okay, share screen. I'm going, why? Why share screen? Oh, I've been sharing screen all along. I thought I
Not
stopped
seen
sharing
anything,
screen.
Teach.
Okay, let's go. All right, here. Let's just go with, which one should I go with? I think it's this one. Yeah. All right, so this is the Viva presentation. this is actually for the final view, but it's really the same thing, except there's more details in the final view. So if you look at it, you'll see that there is technical content. So the mini Viva has only chapters 1 to 3, and the final Viva has chapters 4 and 5. So there's technical content, presentation aids. Okay, I'm not scrolling down. Quality of presentation, question and answer. And you don't do a prototype demonstration in the mini Viva. So there's a different Viva for rubric for research only, because in research only you won't have an artifact. Artifact would be the prototype. Yeah. So you just have it's a different rubric. I mean, they're very similar enough. But you would not have obviously a prototype, so you won't have that as part of it. And for a large development project, the weighting is different. So so for the final Viva, the prototype demonstration is half of the mark. Right, so they're similar. So I'm just going to go up to the research and business development. And since mini Viva is coming up, I'm just going to just focus straight on the mini Viva. So, and you can get the actual mini Viva rubric, but it's along the same line. So chapter 1, as you know, is the introduction. So we're looking for everything, including a good background, a good problem statement, the purpose, significance, research questions, objectives of research questions, right? All of that should be there. And by the way, the purpose and the significance are different. So each of those things comments should be there. So depending, you get different marks from 0 all the way up to 10, depending on the quality of the technical content. Chapter 2, which is literature review, is also assessed. So depending on how much relevant material with depth and understanding you show in it. And by the way, that should include the citations, which you show in APA format, which should be the surname and the year that would be presented. And so not only do you show evidence of research with depth and understanding, you should also, it should be clear that is the important facets of the research. If you have 2 research questions, remember, nobody at the end of a project answers the research question of lit review, but the lit review should be related to the title of the project and to the research questions. So if you're research, somebody give me a research topic, please, quickly. Everything is presented. I don't understand that question. Can somebody give me a topic that you're actually doing for major project right now, please? In the chat or say it out loud. I have 74 people here. Nobody is willing to tell me what the topic is. While I'm waiting for you to look up your title of your topic or your research questions, I would actually like somebody in the next 5 minutes to please in the chat or out loud. Better email in the chat. Since nobody's telling me right away, I'm waiting. I'm going to continue talking. I'm waiting for somebody. I want to give an example for a reason. Anyway, so chapter 3, you're going to be talking about your methods and procedures, and it needs to be detailed and following all the important elements. Good methods include the research design, that is it qualitative or quantitative, and why? What is the population and sampling size? Why did you choose that? You need to talk about the instruments. You're going to need to talk about the analytical approach, like, if it's statistical or otherwise, which one you chose and why. What is ethics? I don't know if I've missed something, but all of those things need to be talked about. You won't have chapters 4 and 5 in the mini Viva. Your presentation aids, for example, a PowerPoint slide, should reinforce your topic. Remember, you're not supposed to be reading from the screen. So you can put it on index card or a physical index card, or, you know, in the background what you're presenting, but it should just be bullet points that you then present from. Like the only thing up there that you know to read out loud, typically you're allowed to read the problem statement word for word and read the research questions word for word, read the purpose word for word. But lit review, you're not going to be reading word for word. Even the background, you should be reading word for word. So you heard me? You can read the problem statement, the research question, and the purpose. Everything else should just be bullet points. The background should be bullet points. The significance could be bullet points, and then you explain. The lit review is bullet points on the screen and you're explaining. The methods to bullet points and you're explaining. Everybody hear me loud and clear? And then, so that's what you want in your presentation is you're expected to have an executive summary. And if you were in person, we'd have a soft copy. Oh, no, you're not in person. A soft copy. Soft copy means you're going to email the draft report to the panelists. And then you're also expected to, you're graded for your quality of presentation, how well your slides were organized, the time management. You only have 15 minutes for the mini Viva. You need to have no disrupting mannerisms if you were there in person, but that's why back to, we really should be having your video on. In fact, on that note, let me start my video. Hi. Yeah, so you should have your video on. And I guess to have my video on well, should be looking in the, yeah, should be looking at you, saying hi. Right, so I went to a training yesterday about Zoom, and the presenter, a foreigner, was saying that it's best to teach with your video on. And I'm thinking it's ironic because the computer I have at my desk at UTech doesn't have any kind of camera. Anyway, but this is another laptop that I don't even own, but it has a camera. So here I am using it because I heard that it's better. It might have more engagement. Yeah, so you should be clear, audible, use good grammar, obviously good diction, and really look at your slides. Really, you should be looking at the audience if you're in person, and even when you're presenting, for it to be best, you should be looking directly at the people that you're presenting to. That's the best kinds of presentations. Clearly, grooming is also important. So question and answer, you should be able to handle difficult questions, explain with examples, show that you actually know the subject, and present with high confidence. And we won't talk about the prototype because prototype is not in the mini Viva. So that's basically what's important in the mini Viva in summary. So I wanted to move from that still mini Viva into just an example, quick example. Downloaded it earlier. I think I have to stop share and reshare. I'm also doing what they said. They said it's better to only share the, I don't see it, to share the, I don't see that file. I mean, what I should do is open this first. Let's see, where is it? Okay, no, not it. Let's try this. Here we go, this. Enable editing, okay. And then I can. Yeah, thanks. Thing is telling me a whole heap of things. All right, so let's now go to share screen. Go back to share screen. No matter which one. I don't know. Okay. Okay. Saying was it's going to be about the same thing again. The shared window is closed. That wasn't very nice of it. Which one? Should I try this one this time? Let's see if it's yeah. Hopefully this is not going to who knows? Let's see if it's going to go. Yeah, anyway, I'm not going to worry about this too much. So this was a presentation by a group that I supervised 2 years ago. Let's see, it doesn't seem to want to activate. I didn't really download in advance. Let's see, hopefully I can at least press play. Yes, I can, good. Yeah, so this is their presentation. I didn't create it. This is students' presentation. They put my name at the end. So this is their overview. They started off by saying, it was 2 years ago, they were talking about the 2 years of the pandemic. They showed that COVID cases were primarily growing at the time. It wasn't growing that fast, because this was after 2 years of COVID. And they showed NCB's non-communicable disease patients were at higher risk of contracting COVID-19. And COVID-19 measures led to difficulties getting prescription drugs, like the stay-at-home orders, etc. And there's evidence in the literature, for example, Lou et al., that indicates that mobile apps can be helpful in delivering patient care. So because mobile health apps have utility both in providing information about health information, helping with communication between patients and physicians, as well as improving patient outcomes in the short term, it's something that may be useful in Jamaica. In fact, I shouldn't say that, because this is the background. Background, you should just read it saying, but I didn't practice here, guys. I was looking at this, I'm just trying to wing it. In fact, on that note, I'm criticizing myself. In giving a background, you should just give the background you're giving. So this is literature. So eventually, when I get to the problem statement, since there is evidence that mobile health apps have been helpful based on collected data, in the problem statement, we can say there's an opportunity for. I was jumping the gun. So since patients with non-communicable diseases like cancer, diabetes, heart disease, etc., are at home because of the recommendations, without their routine checkups, they need to be monitored for medication adherence. There are studies that show that mobile apps can effectively help chronic disease patients, such as NCD, non-communicable disease patients, that can actually make them adherent to taking their medication, meaning they're more likely to take their meds. There are a number of technology acceptance models that actually can be used to determine whether or not a user is willing to use a system. The two most prevalent models are technology acceptance and new thought, which I've not forgotten what it stands for, but if I was doing the presentation, I would say it, because unified theory of acceptance and user technology, something like that. I would have to say it, I'd be ready to say it properly. And so there are these two models as reference in the thing that can be used. But our research indicates that there's been a disruption caused by COVID-19 virus that has affected people with non-communicable diseases, making access to medical care more difficult. Patient turnover has steadily decreased, and there's a challenge in getting checkups and filling prescriptions, so it adversely affects the well-being of the patients. So emergent research shows that these patients have a higher rate of falling prey to COVID-19 than others, and so their health should be monitored carefully. The aim of this project is to measure the technology acceptance of a mobile app that is both for patients with non-communicable diseases, as well as health professionals, specifically physicians and pharmacists. We have 3 research questions, and then I would read them So for example, the second one, how receptive are pharmacists, physicians, and patients to monitoring medication online? And the one is to using a pilot version. The first one is really about the model we talked about earlier. We're going to measure the technology acceptance of the 3 groups in using e-prescription apps in Jamaica. So why is this project significant? Because it adds knowledge about mobile apps, or we're expected to add knowledge. It may add knowledge. By the way, in certificates, you always talk about it may. You never know in advance. So remember, there are 2 types of certificates, theoretical and practical, and this one has both. So the theoretical significance is that the project may add knowledge about this acceptance of mobile apps in Jamaica among the 3 population groups that we mentioned. If it is applied, it may lead to reduction in waiting time for prescriptions among patients with non-communicable diseases, which is currently a problem. And also another practical significance is it could lead to improved medication adherence for patients with non-communicable diseases. So what are the methods of this particular project? We're going to talk about several elements mentioned there on the screen. What is research design? It is cross-sectional mixed method study. By the way, in your presentation, this will be future, and in your final Viva, it will be past, because in the mini Viva, you wouldn't have done it yet. So this study is a mixed method cross-sectional study that will be conducted. We're going to use a number of survey instruments to gather both qualitative and quantitative data on 3 population groups: physicians, pharmacists, and patients. And of the 2,236 physicians that are registered in Jamaica based on the Medical Association of Doctors, there are currently 495 pharmacies based on what we investigated. And based on 2016 data, 79% of the deaths in Jamaica were related to non-communicable diseases, clearly a problem. And so what is the sampling method that we're going to be using for the 3 groups? We're using convenience sampling based on the quantitative data. We're going to select 100 and, sorry, this is actually the presentation for the final Viva, literally what the students used. So we would, in the mini Viva, just say there's convenience sample. We plan to select 100 NCD patients. There will be 30 health professionals, 15 pharmacists, and 15 physicians. That's not what they actually got. And qualitative would also be convenience sampling. We're targeting for the interviews, 30 health professionals in the same method, 15 of each group. And the data collection instruments are electronic, and we're using semi-structured interviews for physicians and pharmacists. And the electronic instrument is based on the Utah, which is the better of the 2 technology instruments that we mentioned earlier. So here it is, Unified Theory of Acceptance and Use Technology Model, Utah. And it has a number of variables: performance expectancy, effort expectancy, social influence, facilitating conditions. And we want to see if those variables are actually correlated with the intention to use the e-prescription app. Since we're actually not going to, it's a pilot study, we're not actually going to measure if they actually use it. So the entire study is whether or not gender, age, experience, voluntariness of use, and these variables in the Utah model, whether the thing works as expected, whether it performs as expected, whether people that we know, such as doctors and friends, believe that it would work, and whether facility conditions like, do I have internet access? Do those make a difference with my intention to use the app? This study has some methodological limitations because this sample size is small and convenient. In particular, convenient samples are problematic when you want to generalize because it's not a probability sampling method. And since it's a cross-sectional design, we'll not be able to say that there's any cause and effect relationship, that you'd have to do a longitudinal study, and that's not what is possible in this study. The data collected from the questionnaire is by self-report, and so there may be reporting bias if all candidates are not always accurate or perhaps even have memory problems. So that can affect the ability to generalize on the study. Then this would not be, this is part of the final presentation. So here's a prototype that they showed in their final presentation. These are their results. I actually really like their presentation. It was so nice to watch. Look at this. Is this nice? Just easy to follow. I'm not going to present that right now because and it shows their correlations of those variables, and see they were all significant for the patients and then for the doctors. And most persons, health professionals agreed, 10 out of 16 agreed that it was a good idea. And then these are the correlations for physicians. Only performance expectancy and social influence actually had significance in the project. In other words, for the small number of 16 people, there was no evidence that facilitated conditions or the effort you use would actually have an impact on whether the physicians intended to use the application, the e-prescription app. And so we could look at all of this, but this is not what I'm trying to do now. So I could maybe do it another time. And this is their results and findings. Their graphics are really compelling. And this is their conclusions, and and then they gave recommendations. And you see, they have these nice bullets and they can talk more about it. And these are their references. You should only have the references in here that you actually use in the presentation. And these were actually all referred here. And then they say any questions. And then they had key definition in case people want to come back to that. And yeah. Oh, you know what? I think this is right. And these are, I'm trying to think here. Trying to think if this is the, you know what? I think this is the wrong yeah, sorry. I'm actually laughing, guys, because you know what I think this is? Hold on, let me present the little review really quick, because I realized that this is actually the presentation that the students did to the Ministry of Health and Wellness. So let me go to lit review. So lit review, sorry, I presented in the wrong order. So it should be chapter 1. Sorry, this project was also presented to the Ministry of Health and Wellness. So chapter 1 is the introduction, chapter 2 is literature review, chapter 3 is method. We didn't look at the literature review, so here it is. So COVID-19 had an impact on NCD patients. It led to increase in hospitalization. There was a dramatic increase in how much cases had an impact on healthcare. And we know that people with old age and pre-existing conditions were more likely to have an impact on COVID. In what they presented in the actual project, in major project was actually longer than this, but let's go on to what we have here in this. Why is this not going on? Right. And the gaps in the literature is that there is not enough research studies on the adoption, use, attitudes, and perceptions that the 3 population groups, physicians, patients, and pharmacists, have towards using an e-prescription app and monitoring medication adherence via the app. And even though there are studies on the use of e-prescription and medication adherence, most of those studies are not mixed methods. And in fact, there's nothing that's not here. Let me see what it's presenting us now. That's it. There actually is also limited studies that are longitudinal. We did not meet that gap. So most of these studies that are like that, there's usually problems with sample size being small and longitudinal studies. Almost all of these kind of studies, they have studies that show that, in fact, this study was about 2 things. It was about e-prescription and medication adherence. There is ample literature that shows that medication adherence apps actually lead to people taking their medication as prescribed. Not perfectly, no, but more than it did before. But a lot of these studies are not long-term. So we don't have in the literature proof that medication adherence app work over the long term, but over the short term. That's not here. I'm just saying that's the kind of thing that would be presented. But because this was presented to the Ministry of Health and Wellness, they had to present the entire project in 15 minutes. You hear me, guys? this all I had showed you was presented in, not this part. So up to right here was presented in 15 minutes. And Jenny Anderson, who presented it, won Best Student Project for this in the Ministry of Health. So students actually can do such a good job presenting a project that literally can win a prize against. There are people there in this project who are medical students and the like. So let me stop the share. Any comment or question? Ah, I see Joel Green finally gave the topic using AI and AOT for autonomous pothole detection. What I would love to know, Mr. Green, is what is your research questions? But what I wanted to say earlier is that for the mini Viva, what I would expect for the lit review for that group Mr. Green is in to be talking about specifically Internet of Things and AI, how those have been used for autonomous pothole detection in the past, anywhere in the world. And since I don't know off the top of my head, but I do remember group supervisor, Mr. White, doing something
I
like that.
believe it was last year's group or the year before he mentioned it. That group did pothole detection for their major project before.
So, Mr. Green, is that your group? Is that your topic? Yeah, I know a group did that before. I'm just wondering if there's a group doing that now. Anyway, I asked a topic. My name is Ms. Muir. Sorry to be on my case. I'm Ms. Muir. I'm going to say this indefinitely. Ms. is my name, MS, MUIR. I don't like you branding my name in a way that I don't like. But I actually asked what topic people are doing now because I wanted to engage the topics you're doing now, not a theory. I know a million topics. But if that was a topic somebody was doing now, they would need to be in the lit review, be talking about both how artificial intelligence and Internet of Things had been applied to autonomous pothole detection. Depending on how much is on that area, they may go to other related things related to let's say there was little on that. They could maybe go more generally about IoT and AI in, say, with other things to do with road networks, other than pothole detection, or some other application that is similar to that. But the point is, if you have a lit review and at the end of it, it's not addressing topics directly related to the research question, so that we can know what is known and what is not known. Yeah, so guys, I want to engage you on your topics. So I want to move on from there because I can't believe I'm in a meeting with 70, no, lost some people. It had 77 people. Anyway, some people have, no, 72 it says. Confused. Why it says 72 but 64? On one screen, I'm seeing 72 and 64. Anyway, with a lot of people, and not one person will give me their topic. So I'm going to move on. I just want to engage people with their actual topics in a way that can say, here's what you need to make sure your review is on. But not one person is willing to cooperate. So I'm moving on. I finished with Mini Viva and the rubric. Any questions? Because you guys are not cooperating. Seriously. Shaking my head. Okay, I'm on to see. I'm moving on. No question or comment. So hopefully everybody gets an idea of how to do the to do a presentation. By my attempt at that presentation just now. Yeah, I remember I'm not going to do an ethics. There's already been an ethics application presentation. I'm not doing an ethics application presentation. All I'm going to do is just do a, how do I find this simply now? Let's see, I'm actually wondering if I should wait another time. How do I find this fast? Don't know how do I find this fast at all. Let's try to figure out how do I find this fast. Maybe here. Ethics. Maybe I should do it here. Okay, here. Admit. Yes, I'll leave it at this go there and come back. Okay, admit. Why is this one not being admitted? Okay, I'm going to share screen again. Yes. All right. So okay, so this is literally what myself and my team submitted to the UTech Ethics Committee. Wow. Let's just download them. I should just use this one instead. This is really it, but I don't want to. This is download this one. Download. Let's download that one. That from there. Just hopefully it will. No. Start recovery. Oh, should I do that right now? Oh well. So all of these things. Okay. That's for the information. Next. And save. Oh. Okay, let's see if this is what I want. Yes. All right, you can see the screen, right?
Not seeing the presentation, just your
This is not a
emails.
presentation. I'm not doing a presentation.
I thought you were downloading from previous.
No, it's not a presentation. I'm not doing a presentation. I'm actually showing you application for ethics. You already had a presentation. I already gave you what is important. I said earlier, let me say it again, people are going and coming. For ethics application, there's a website. You just upload to the website. Before you upload to the website, your supervisor should see. Why does it say your screen sharing is paused? It's back. Are you seeing School of Graduate Studies at the top? Are you seeing that right now?
Don't teach, just your emails.
Oh, just my emails. All right, stop share. All right, why my email? I don't want to see my email share screen. Let me see if it will come up now. No, not this, not this. Here, see it here. Hopefully it will come up now. Are you seeing School of Graduate Studies?
I'm seeing it now, teach.
Yeah, I wasn't trying to show you my emails at all. That's why this is doing this way is dangerous. Anyway, so this is an actual application that was submitted less than 2 months ago to UTech Ethics Committee, and I actually am the leader on this particular project. So this is a real thing that I did not approve myself. So this is a project. Factors are so back to what I was saying. For those who came in late, reminder for ethics, you fill out the form as a group. You send the form to your supervisor, who looks through the form and signs it. There's a part for 2 parts for signature. You can add the signature, like just scanning your signature and just attach it to the form. Then you submit it on the website to the FENC committee, which includes this application form, as well as all the instruments, the informed consent, etc., all of those things. But like we actually had 11 attachments, as I just showed you the actual email. So this is the application form. So the project is called Factors Associated with Stakeholder Satisfaction, E-Learning Acceptance, and Work Readiness of Stakeholders in Higher Education Institutions. It hasn't been submitted anywhere else before. I am the principal investigator. That's my email. So the person is the secondary supervisor. That's our extensions at UTech. There are no students officially on the project. So that's why it's blank. In your case, you will fill out, you undergraduate, so you fill that out. So there's names for all the students. We expect the project to go from November 1st all the way to November 30th, 2023. And by the way, these dates are the data collection dates, not the date when you started the project. You know, it's not September. It is whenever you expect the data collection to start. So at this point, for all of you, that's obviously 2023 at some point. It's not going to be before that. We're not getting is a project. So we actually currently have no funding, but we're actually going to apply for funding, but we haven't. It's not for drugs. So that's why the answer is no. We at the time of the ethics application, we did not apply for funding as yet. We actually planning to apply to UTech Research Development Fund. And it doesn't involve any privacy legislation. So then you put the details and project has aims. The aim of the project, that's the same as the purpose, guys, is to measure the quality of higher education institutions in Jamaica. It has 3 objectives. Remember, you can have only one, you don't have to have 3. Ours was to investigate the factors linked to satisfaction and loyalty of higher educational institutions among key stakeholders, that is students, faculty, employees who are graduates of higher education institutions, and employers of those higher education institution graduates. To measure the acceptance of remote, online, and hybrid education among the students and faculty, and determine the factors associated with work readiness of students and graduates of higher education institutions. So we have a significance. The study is expected to aid decision makers in higher education institutions. It also may be useful to employers, parents, and guidance counselors, as well as government policymakers. You need to check these boxes. Does your study have people with intellectual impairment, people dependent on medical care, convicts or captive groups, human tissue samples, indigenous special, all that is no for us, assisted reproductive technology, epidemiological research, human genetic research, covert observations. No, covert means that is hidden, clinical trials, minors under 18. All of us, that is no. So if it's under 18, you'd have to put yes. And if it's yes, you would say how many children? But no, children are people under 18. So all that is no for us. Then we say this is the section that is the most problematic among the whole application for both students. 11. So maybe you might want to pay attention. No, this is specific to our project, but you have to actually describe it succinctly. So where the project we conducted, we're planning to do it in urban and rural parishes, 7 higher education institutions, UTech, UE, NCU, CARIMAT, we list them. The research design is cross-sectional survey, where we're going to collect data from participants once. What's the research method? Each stakeholder will respond to an online questionnaire, or the survey items will be read by research assistants. Focus groups will be conducted with willing participants from all stakeholder groups. And we have four participant groups. Most of you might only have 1 or 2, graduates, employers, students, and faculty. And we are doing triangulation. It says, why are they selected? To determine the satisfaction of a variety of stakeholder groups, as well as the work readiness of persons who attended higher education institutions. How will potential participants be approached? We're going to email them posters, letters, and informed consents, which are attached. I think they're attached because they're attached. People who do not respond to the email will be contacted by telephone. We can imagine we're going to apply for funding so that we can offer incentives. You won't usually do that. Telephone credit or opportunity to win Amazon gift cards for the completion of the entire survey. How much time will the potential participants have to consider the invitation? 1 to 2 weeks. And we again say that there are 4 groups of, how will they be selected? We're using a stratified sampling technique. That's normally not appropriate for most of your studies. Usually you would be convenient sampling or simple random sampling, depending on your project. Stratified sampling is for complicated projects, where we have the specific number of people that we're planning to use, the exact amount of students, graduates, faculty members, and employers based on statistics. And we talk about the sampling frame, and we expect 50% response of people from the surveys of people that we actually contact. People are required to complete questionnaires. Participants should participate in the focus groups. How will we protect privacy? All identified information will be removed and aside code numbers, and it will be stored in a password protected file available only to the research team. Yes, we have done this kind of research before, but your answer would usually be no. So both myself and the primary investigator and the co-investigator is actually a team of about four or five people. We've all done research before. So we've done it only in Jamaica. And then our data management, we're going to store the data in password protected files, and that's only available to research team and backed up on the cloud. And we're going to require that all members sign a non-disclosure agreement. We're going to clean the data for coding. For analysis, now how we're going to do it. And we're going to use descriptive analytical statistics like cross tabulation and correlations. And then 15, you actually need to fill this out. What is how are you going to end the project? How will you review the progress? We're going to do it bi-monthly to see what is happening, because our thing the data collection is going to take some time for us. What is the duty of care? The people have to sign a consent form. Ours is actually online for the most part, but they can opt out at any time. Their responses are anonymous. That's our duty of care. Procedures, if there are problems, we'll report negative outcomes to the Office of Graduate Studies, Research and Entrepreneurship at UTech. We don't expect the project to cease prematurely, which means end quickly before the project is ended, because there's unlike debate. We're just asking people how they feel about education, on people that they hire. So we don't expect that given that the study, but if there is some complaint means that it's going to harm people, we will stop the study. So if necessary, the study will be halted. And feedback, people will be able to get an email of summary if they want. In addition, participants will be able to read about the publication newspapers and/or scholarly literature. And then there is signature. That's my there's no supervisor here, but you need to have a supervisor. And that's an example. Any comment or questions? I see we've lost people anyway. So now I need to get to what I was saying, because I can see that part of the reason why we now have 15 more minutes. I can see I'm going to have some problem. So you're welcome for showing. Let's just find this quickly. Maybe Mr. Witter will be able to help me, because I see I got no other volunteer. I got no other volunteer for the I got no volunteer for the I got no volunteer for the secondary person to help with the what was I calling it? With the second assistant. All right, I had this open earlier. Can I find it back? Or is it still open? So many documents. All right, let's just look for it again. I had it open earlier, but I don't think I downloaded it. All right, I think that's it. I think I just need to download it. I think I don't. Oh, I'd opened it but not downloaded it. All right.
Excuse me, Ms. Mayor.
Yes.
I'm volunteering myself as the
Okay.
second rep.
Okay, Miss Williams, can you kindly send me an email to smure@utech?
Okay, Miss. Miss Mayor.
Thank you. No problem. Oh, I'm just wondering how am I going to do this now? Oh, maybe I'm going to do this another time. Anyway, but let me just show what I wanted to show. But I realized I actually have a UTech key. But let me share my screen. And I realized that I'm going to I'd actually have to, I downloaded it, but I need to, yeah. So here's the thing, guys. I'm just going with what I had. Let's see, register major project. Is that the same thing? Register CRM. There's a file with students, and I think it's this one. So I don't know who the supervisor is. So here's the thing. Maybe, oh, here the supervisor is here for some of them. Okay, so I can't edit. So I see here, there is, yeah, so like Miss Mears, who is Miss Garshan, who is here. So we have Dr. Campbell's groups, Mrs. Parks, groups, so she has 3 groups, Mrs. Delissa, Christine Anuli, Christopher Panto, Christopher Dego. Oh, this project doesn't have a supervisor. Oh no, I see. Mr. White. Mr. White. Miss Allen. Okay, that one actually has a group. I see it here now. Mr. Allen, Mr. Logan, Professor Akindle Dejo, Julian Jarrett, Caroline Black, Leela Nadine Barrett, Philip Smith, Warren Clark, Shola and Nadine Barrett, Sophia McNamara, Professor Sean Thorpe, this is me, Tanya Graham. Hold on. This group still exists? Is Daniel, Amanda, Siobhan, or Easton here? Yeah, I guess they can talk to me later if that's. And I see a group here that has a topic animal supervisor. Are they here? I think I should have done this earlier. I was wondering why it's the same thing twice. This is the same project twice. There's another project I don't have a supervisor according to what is here. Digital assistant in tourism industry. Does this project have a group? Well, that's in several projects I don't have groups. So I take it that everybody here, even the ones that have a topic and no supervisor, they're not here now. Okay, I'm going to stop the share. Yes, so I'm prefer this meeting to finish at 3 o'clock, 1 to 3. We didn't really start properly until 1:20. But apart from some people who put in the chat that they wanted to talk to me individually, and some people telling me that they have some specifics. Okay, I'm going to stop recording because I don't see anything here. So let me just find where this recording is. So there's somewhere recording here.